There are strange things out there that seem to have no explanation. Sometimes they're conjured up by the darkest corners of our subconscious. But on occasion, they dwell beyond the confines of our imagination. They may come from another realm, out of the sky, or from beyond the grave. Once they reach out from beyond the veil, the line between dreams and reality fades. It's our job to investigate these reports and compile the Virginia Paranormal Case Files.
When I first went into the home, I just felt very uneasy. I thought it was a beautiful home, and I was hoping we could find a nice place where we've been going through a lot for a long time. And I was just hoping that my daughter and I and the family would be really happy. I felt like all the time something was watching me, and I was being followed. And when I go to look, I'd see the little shadow, and then it would disappear. And I would lay down on the couch, and the little dog, and by this time we have a cat, a little kitten. And the kitten would lay on the ottoman in front of me, and my little dog would lay behind my leg. And I'm laying there. And one day I was laying there, and all of a sudden I heard a loud noise, sounding like someone was running up the basement steps. And it's just me and the dog and the cat there. And it was running up the steps, and I raised my head, and Timmy raised up, my puppy, and the cat sat up, and all three of us were looking towards the door, waiting for someone to fly through the basement door. And we're all, just sitting there, and of course no one come. It scared me, but no one came through the door.
I went from being age 7 to, age 37 to 7, with the feeling I had going from the garage to the basement stairwell. It felt like something was chasing me. As I come in the basement, turn the light off, I got to shut the door, and it got worse. It got frigid cold. I could see my breath, and I ran up the stairs into the house.
Yeah.
The next day, I didn't get out of bed until 1 o'clock that afternoon.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have a stomach bug. I didn't have a fever. I just could not
You just
get
wiped
up.
out.
I could not get up.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't until I got out of the house about 4 o'clock that afternoon I started feeling better.
And one day I was laying on the couch, and Timmy was behind me, the kitten was in front of me, and I had fallen asleep, and all of a sudden I woke up, and when I did, there was a hand, a man's hand, and it's strange how, to me it looked like a man that would maybe be in his 50s. It was a Caucasian man, and I could only see his fingers from here, his arm to here. There's no sleeves, no nothing, just an arm. And I had my phone, I was laying on my side, and I had my phone laying on the couch by me. And that hand went to reach for my phone. And before it could get its hand on my phone, I grabbed it and I jumped up.
It was about 2 weeks ago. She was laying here taking a nap. Thought she was dreaming and seen a hand from about fingertip to elbow, male figure, older male, was reaching towards her bathrobe for her cell phone. And she grabbed it. When she did, she rolled over. And when she did, she saw about a 21-year-old male standing over top of her staring at her.
When I looked up, and it was in front of the window, but the blinds and all were shut, and there's, in the corner, there's a space that you could go back there and stand or whatever, and the kids will go back there and play or whatever. But there was a young man standing back there, staring down at me, laying on the couch. He looked like he was probably around 21 years old. I was going to go over to the neighbor's house and talk to her. She invited me over. And I told her I would come. I said, but first let me go get dressed because I had on a real big, thick robe I wear because I'm freezing. And I didn't have my shoes on. I had thick socks. So I said, let me go get my shoes on and go get my clothes on. And I'll be right over there. And so she went home and I come in. And as soon as my back got to the door, all of a sudden I was struggling to breathe. And I got my little dog into my bedroom in the pen, and all he wanted to do, usually he goes right in there, no fuss, no nothing, and he kept crying and wouldn't shut up and barking, and he very seldom barks. And I grabbed my shoes, and I wasn't able to get dressed. I've come back into the, and I grabbed my purse because I was struggling. I couldn't breathe, and I knew I couldn't call out on my phone because I could never get out. And so I knew, I thought, well, I'm gonna call Rachel, because my daughter, because if she sees where I try to call, she's gonna call me back because she knows I don't call her at work. She's gonna know something's wrong, and she saw it. And I told her when she called me, I told her I couldn't breathe. I was struggling and to call, the phone. And so she did. She called 911, and she apparently left then. But my niece came in, but it was a little bit afterwards. But I knew when I was sitting there in that chair by the dining room table that I couldn't even get my shoes on. I knew that if help didn't get there soon, I was going to die. Once I was in ICU, like 4 days, and then that fourth day, late in the evening, I got to go to a regular room, and they wanted to do a stress test, and nothing showed up on my stress test. My heart's fine, everything is fine. And I do have problems with my blood pressure, but I've had problems with my blood pressure since my first pregnancy. And I'm on medication, and I take it. But
that's not enough to make your lungs fill up with fluid.
No.
High blood pressure.
My ankles, my hands, face, nothing else was swollen. It showed no signs of fluid. It was just my lung.
They let me finally go back with her into the ER. She kept pulling the mask off, like she had to tell me something. And she had just this face. I can't explain to you what she looked like fear, like she had seen. And she kept telling me, cleanse, cleanse. And at the hospital, Jay had a picture of
One of the guys that
committed the crime
that beat the mom.
and the family.
That beat the mom with a metal pipe.
Oh, jeez.
And when I showed her the picture, the lady started crying, blood pressure went up immediately, heart rate went up immediately, and almost jumped out of the bed. This man is still alive, and this is the man she's seen.
Okay.
That's the man she's seen staring at her.
Right.
I mean, we didn't tell her what the picture was about. We said, we just want you to look at this picture. And I wanted to see her reaction. While she's in ICU, I have people there to help me. And
Yeah, she kept saying, that's the son, that's the son. They didn't have the son.
Oh, so this wasn't the daughter's boyfriend, but the daughter's one of the other friends.
All three of them were involved in it.
They all three committed it. The murders were involved. But my mom is, for some reason, only seeing this one boy in an old man's hand. And when the old man's hand, she thought she saw, like, 50-some-year-old, which was about his age, go into her pocket. We thought maybe maybe he's trying to protect her from this. I don't know.
I know I said, I'm never gonna go back there. I don't even want to go on the road.
We don't want to leave, but with this situation, my family is in danger.
Now, did the priest actually do a blessing, or did he just come in and look around?
He did a
little
blessing
bit?
for us. He blessed with some holy water.
Good.
He left me his crucifix.
He left us a crucifix here. I hung it over top the front door. But when he first met me, he shook my hand and he looked concerned.
Yeah.
He says, "You have an orb or something going on around you."
Yeah.
We prayed. He prayed for me and, did the
Right.
cross on me with the holy water. And then we were alone in the basement when I asked him to do that, because we got to get the stuff out of the basement too.
Yeah.
He wouldn't move. He stayed in the same spot. He made a half a step forward just to douse the holy water. He said, "This is not good. It's not leaving. It's vetted into the land." And asked me and told me, he goes, I need to leave.
Really?
Now, back in 1992, there was a murder that occurred in this neighborhood right across the street from the house that we were called out to. And that ties in very much with the reports that we were getting from this one house. And what had actually occurred was that there was a family that was living there, husband and wife and 2 teenage daughters. Evidently one of the teenage daughters was sort of a wild child, and the other one was a very good child, always obedient. And the one that was sort of the wild child started rebelling quite a bit when they moved into the neighborhood. And she ended up meeting a young man and getting involved with this guy who was sort of bad for her. And one day, all of a sudden, they show up on the doorstep very late at night to her house and knock on the door, and the father answers the door. And when he answers it, he sees a knife that the young man is holding in his hand, and he says something to the effect of, "Well, I didn't know you had the guts for it." So at that moment, the young man lunges forward and stabs the father repeatedly. And he did not die immediately, however, but they went into the house, and very soon after, the other daughter showed up. And when the other daughter showed up, she begged and pleaded for her life, and they ended up killing her. And then all of a sudden the mother came home. They didn't expect her to be home quite as early as she did. She got off work early. But when she came home, she started talking to the daughter and saying, "Why are you doing this?" Pleading for her life, saying, "You don't have to do this." So the older daughter, that seemed like she was going to sort of have mercy on the mother and let her live. But then another young man that had come along with this couple had come up behind her with either a pipe or a barbell of some sort and had cracked her in the head with it. And he cracked her head open, and of course she started bleeding profusely. Now at this point they pretty much fled the scene. So the father is left in the house. He's not quite dead yet. The mother is not quite dead yet. She goes across the street to our client's house and knocks on the door seeking help. And we believe that the man who was living in the home at the time was the landlord for these people, these clients. So at the time, he would have probably let this woman in and would have called the police and the ambulance, of course. And it could very well be that her blood was soaked into the floor right in the main part of the house where she would have been laid on the floor. Now, another interesting thing about this is that the father back at the house, he didn't die necessarily from the stab wounds directly. It was more of an indirect thing. He ended up drowning on his own blood because his lungs filled up with this blood. And when he actually drowned from it is when he died sometime later. So given the reports and given the fact that this woman who had lived in this house, one of our clients, was seeing these figures, these men in her house, one of them being an older man and the other one being a younger one, about 20. It was when she actually saw pictures and learned of the murder, saw pictures of the people who perpetrated the murder and of the victims, that she said, Well, the father is the one that I see in the house who was reaching for my phone, and the younger man who had helped carry out the crime was the one who she had seen standing in the corner. Now, the interesting thing about this is the younger man is actually alive, and he's in the state pen evidently right now. So she was seeing a ghost of a person that is still alive. And from what she said, it sounded like this was not just a residual haunting. This was actually an intelligent haunting. The man was standing there staring right at her when she awakened from her nap. So some very interesting things. I've only heard of this happening once before. It was sort of an astral projection sort of thing. But who knows? You know, there could be lots of theories as to why someone would see the ghost of a person that's still alive. So we're going to keep our equipment in the car on this investigation. That's not something that we normally do, but in this instance, there seems like there may be a little bit of danger involved in taking our equipment inside the house, keeping it in there for any length of time, and then putting it back in the car and taking it home. So just for the sake of a little bit more safety, we're going to keep things out here, and then we're going to start our baseline. So we're going to take only the equipment that we need to do the baseline readings into the house. We'll go through and do the baseline readings and then bring it back out and put it back.
Friday, 'cause I had them last weekend.
Yeah.
Come in.
My first thoughts coming into this development has the name of the road is Indian something, and so there's the first clip. A lot of times these developments, they come in here, they buy the land, and they just don't care what's here before. They'll just bulldoze it, whatever, make out the plots for the land, for the layouts, and then just start building. And I don't think they even record anything. Like even if they run into bones, since it's their private land, they just be like, whatever. We don't want to tell anybody. They could notify like something from the historical society or something, but sometimes they'll just be in a hurry. They just want to make money. So that happens a lot with all this sprawl going on everywhere. Oh, while he was giving his interview, I was standing right here, and I heard a sound, creak over here. Could have been something, but could have been nothing. But it's just a creak. Houses creak. Furniture creaks. Feels pretty sturdy though. And also during the interview, I come over here, and I'm standing, and I feel like, well, I got hairy legs, see? And so a few of the hairs just kind of stood up. Just like, wasn't like all my hairs on my leg, it was just like a little patch of hairs like stood up. And I'm like, what is that? So it was weird.
You can't knock this chill off.
It is quite chilly.
You can't knock it.
You would not think it would be quite this cold.
I've
Right.
had one heater down here with a blower on it
Yeah.
and a radiant oil heater down here at the same time while I was trying to paint this wall.
Wow. I mean, I know cinder block is a great insulator and everything, but still, it's
Feels blocked up.
So is that drywall?
colder in here than it is the block.
This level is dirt level. It's not.
Yeah, that's right.
Right,
Yeah, you
right,
can see the dirt out there.
right.
All my Christmas belongings are in that corner right there.
Mm-hmm.
The day I put them up, both these doors were open the entire day. So I don't know, maybe if it just, followed the path upstairs into the house after that. But just been very eerie. That day I come in, here's a light switch. So this is the one I had to turn off to shut the door, and that's when I started to feel like something's about to harm me. I'm about to get hurt. And then I felt like a child.
So I'm curious what it could be in the ground.
Well, underneath the house is nice and clean. It's it's got the nice plastic down. Insulation's up nice. It's not eerie. There's lights underneath there.
Oh, okay.
I went underneath there and had to help the cable guy.
Oh.
Right.
and
Yeah.
do some things when we first moved in.
Okay.
Okay.
Cable guy didn't even feel comfortable being underneath the house.
Really?
Yeah, even with all the lights on. There's 6 lights underneath that house that are 100-watt bulbs.
Yeah.
So you can see if there's a problem underneath the house.
And that's something that he probably does quite often, so it's
Mhm.
not something that he'd be naturally spooked out
You
because
know,
of being in a cross ring.
This thing here, this nutcracker during Christmas, she couldn't keep batteries in it. It would kill.
Drain
LEDs,
batteries.
batteries would drain. It was in this left corner up here in the living room.
Oh, okay.
It would just, the batteries would drain and they would start leaking the acid out. They were
Ooh,
draining out of
wow.
the package.
Really?
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Not just draining them, but busting them. Wow.
All right, so last spring, my dad and I went on a little expedition, studied a little bit about the Hopewell Indian Native Americans. And they always, everything civilized that they found was usually around waterways and stuff. So even burial mounds, and they were mound builders. And so whenever there's a waterway nearby, I take note of that, especially this neighborhood, because it's surrounded by, you got this waterway and there's another one that crisscrosses it there. So that would tell me that Native Americans most likely went to the water sources and lived in this area, possibly even buried right here. So I'm curious if I'll find any artifacts. Probably not, but sometimes it might leach down into the water.
Plus the fact that waterways are thought to be conductors of paranormal energy,
Oh yeah.
and that not just paranormal, but also demonic energies and entities. It's theorized that they will use waterways to sort of navigate.
Hopefully there's a shooting range nearby.
Yeah, there is.
I'm just gonna assume it is. Yeah, I'll see it. I see people.
So we left the spirit box running in the basement while we went outside and looked around the property a little bit. And when we came back into the basement, Jeff had announced, entering. And then the spirit box all of a sudden started doing something strange, like it slowed way down. So kind of odd. It's not something that we've experienced with it before. And he actually had to come over and mess with it a little bit to get it to sound like it does now, like it's normally supposed to sound. So, but they have talked about a lot of electrical problems, interference with the cell phones, with service, things of that nature. So, I guess that's something to be expected. All right, so we are downstairs in the basement, spirit box session. I am Linda.
I'm Scott.
And
Jeff?
Yep, we have the client here with us as well. We'd like to know who you are. Can you give us a name?
Do you have any issues with us being here?
The digital readout on this spirit box is not on. It's not functioning.
What does that mean? Not picking up a radio signal or anything?
I don't know. It's just not on. Maybe we should try turning this off and turning it back on. Maybe the batteries are low. Where'd you get the batteries?
In the case in the bottom where all the new batteries are.
This thing just beeped, but it didn't. The hand didn't move.
They're in the right way.
Like a small little beep.
I've done this enough. I should know how to put batteries in. Something's got to be dead here. The batteries have to be dead.
Alright.
It's not just not working.
Man, that's not a good sign.
All right, let's try this again. Can you Tell us your name. Who are you?
Do you have any issues with the family living here?
Did you live across the street?
Do you have an attachment to this land?
Gloucester or lost it? Do you have an attachment to a particular person? Perhaps somebody that is in jail right now?
What is your desire?
What if I was to set this crucifix up here on this little ledge? And if I could get it to sit up. Can you move that for me? Can you make that move? Are you hiding right now? Did you attack the older woman that lives upstairs? Did you cause her lungs to be filled with fluid? Jeez. So as soon as we came down here, the cat went into the bedroom and decided to hide, which is very odd for him. He doesn't usually go in the bedroom, so there was something that made him nervous. And both of the animals, the cat and the dog, have been very nervous in this house. So, so we're coming upstairs. We're going to see if we can do a little bit up here. Let's sit right here at this dining room table. Now, the family feels very strange here in the dining room. This is the seat here that the mother-in-law was sitting in when they believe she was attacked by something. And there was some sort of fluid in the lungs that came on very suddenly. The doctors have no explanation for it. So I'm going to take a seat right here. And indeed, it does feel strange in this part of the house, in the center part. It's kind of a heavier feeling in here.
I feel dizzy when I stand
Yeah.
in that area over there behind you.
Yeah, very kind of dizzy feeling.
So
We'll sit down here and see if we can't get something to come speak to us. All right. So we want to know who is here with us. Can you give us a name? Tell us what to call you? Tell us why you're here. Are you trying to give a message to someone in this family? If so, what's that message? Do you believe in Jesus Christ? So I have this crucifix here. Tell me how you feel about having this in this room here. Can you make something on this table move? I mean, if you can affect electricity, if you can attack people, you can certainly move something.
We get the feeling that this entity doesn't want to communicate with us or talk to us. Perhaps he's moving to different parts of the house, so we're gonna split up our forces. I'm gonna go down to the basement into this creepy corner that feels really cold, and we're gonna see what's going on. We got cameras down there, or a camera down there, and I got this sensor, and at the same time we're gonna do our thing up here, so we'll see what happens. Is the camera recording when I'm asking questions down there?
Can you tell us where Scott is? Where's Scott right now? Where are you? Tell us where you are. Are you hiding right now?
So we just discussed how this wooden paneling down here is out of place. It goes nowhere in this house, but we have extra paneling down here, and that's the same kind that's on the house across the street.
The same wood paneling he helped put it in the house next door in the kitchen. I mean, yeah, in the kitchen. I just now noticed that.
That's interesting. That was you said to cover up the blood splatter,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah.
The same wood, same style. I don't know if it's from there or what, but it's the same style.
What's the name of the person who committed the murders across the street? What was his name? Give me a name, any one of their names.
Okay, so what we're going to do is initiate a house blessing on this property. So we're going to go around, we're going to start with salting the property. Scott's going to read some verses, we're going to say some prayers and sprinkle some holy water outside. And our goal is to close in, to make sure we start with the perimeter, securing the perimeter, and then close in to the center of the house. Once we get inside the house, we'll be burning some frankincense, and we will be sprinkling some holy water, the doorways, the windows, any mirrors, every corner of the house. So we're going to go through and do that now.
Even though the property was blessed, the family was determined to move out of the house. Since they have moved out, there have been no further health issues and no further reports of paranormal activity.
So this was actually a pretty interesting investigation, and the audio clips that we got from it were some of the most creepy ones, I have to say, that I've heard. As a matter of fact, I was here listening to them by myself when I first started going through the audio, and the things that I was hearing was enough to make me shut it off and want to come back to it later when somebody was at least in the house with me, because I'm thinking I have to sleep here tonight by myself, and it was really kind of freaking me out. So, but as you can hear from some of the audio clips, they're kind of tinny, but that's because it was taken from a different digital voice recorder than the one that we normally use. But you can still hear the responses that we got. Now, right when we first started the first session, we were saying our names and, asking who it was and why they were there. We got this response here. Now, it's kind of a weird, deep, grovelly voice that's in there. To me, it sounds like it's saying, "Perhaps I see." So, very strange kind of response. Not exactly the type of thing that you would expect to hear over the radio, not because of what was being said, but the way that it was being said and the voice that was being said with. Just kind of creepy. So, the second one that we got was even more creepy. A little bit hard to hear because it's more of a whisper than it is anything else. But we were asking, what should we call you? Like, what is your name? What should we call you? And this is the response. Now there's a little t in there that you can hear. And through the headphones, it actually sounds like it says death. So, kind of, again, a very interesting response. Now, the next one was very relevant to the situation, not quite so creepy this time, but this time we were asking, is there anything that you would like to say to the people who live here? And this is the response. So right at the end there, you can kind of hear this voice that comes through. And it definitely says, "Forgive me." So the next one that we got was another time we were asking questions about, like, what are your intentions? What's your desire, I think is how we had put it. And this was the response. Again, kind of hard to hear because it's sort of a quiet, whispery voice. You can hear it in there. Almost sounds like an electronic voice in a sense. Again, one of those things that you don't necessarily hear over the internet or over the radio. And it says, "Hang her." So nobody was hanged in the investigation, thank goodness. So we managed to escape with our lives. Now, the last one is, again, a little bit hard to hear, but this is one of the ones that definitely has some relevance to the investigation and the situation. We did ask, can you name one of the people that was involved in this murder? Now, this is the response that we've gotten. I don't think this was actually one of the names of the people involved, but the fact that it said this name directly after we had asked this question was quite interesting. Kind of quiet in here, but it said Rebecca. So kind of interesting. I'm not sure how that plays in, if this was just something random, but I felt like it was, like I say, the timing was what was most interesting about it.